Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to this Way of the Fae Masterclass. I'm so looking forward to sharing this with you. It's been brewing for a long time. First of all, I would like you to just say yes. Yes to being your true, authentic, beautiful self. Raising your arms up like this is really important. It's one of my key tips for raising your energy, for feeling good. You'll see born again Christians doing it and Hare Krishnas when they're celebrating. It's a form of celebration. So just raise your arms in the air now and say yes. Awesome. The Way of the Fae is all about tips, tricks, tunes, and truths. Little tiny things that we can do to raise our vibration. And this is a particular truth that wasn't really apparent when they did films like The Secret, for example, where they talked a lot about the law of attraction. And they now know about the law of resonance. And that is that the universe will reflect back to you whatever state that you are in. So if you're in a very low vibrational state, that is what you're going to get back. But the higher the state that you can bring into yourself, that you can hold within yourself, that you can be, then you'll find that the more magic that will come back to you. So first of all, in your journals, I would like you to write down one or two words as what does authenticity mean to you? Now I'm going to move on with the slides, but you can pause it while you write that down. The reason that I'm offering this masterclass, and it is a prelude to the course that I'm going to be running in the new year, is because of what's happening in 2026 astrologically. So in 2024, the outer slower planets, the very slow ones, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, they all moved into water and earth signs for 4 years. And this felt quite slow, quite turgid. Water and earth make mud. And then last summer, they moved into air and fire. And we had this example of what it was like to be in air and fire signs all over the summer. And if you were in the northern hemisphere, we had a very long summer. And there was an awful lot of things happening. The introduction of AI, it had already come in the year before, but suddenly it was everywhere. And even when you Googled something, it was no longer Google, it was AI. And also we had extraordinary things like senior citizens going on protests because they said, I don't mind if I spend the rest of my days in prison. I don't mind if I have a criminal record. This is important to me. So there was a lot of changes, a lot of shifts. And a lot of us are feeling quite tired, overwhelmed, exhausted by what was going on during the summer. And now, as we're in the winter, I'm recording this in December 2025, we've come back into the earth and water signs predominantly. And so we've got an opportunity to sit back and reflect on the summer. How was it for me? How was it for everybody else? And is there anything that I need to prepare in myself for when the air and fire comes back in the spring of 2026 and is going to last for 3.5 years? You know, if you were feeling overwhelmed by what happened in the summer, then a few changes might be in order so that you're better prepared to work with the energies that we have got coming for the next few years. And they're not I don't see them as bad energies. I actually think they are an incredible opportunity for us to use an awful lot more of our brains, which, at the moment we haven't been using very much. But because everything is going to feel like it's becoming instantaneous rather than hard work, then we want to be in the best possible state that we can be in order to ride those energies. And I see it a little bit like surfing, that if you know what you're doing and you enjoy the ride and you're able to move and to flex and to flow with the board and to watch what's coming and go, whoa, yes, okay, I just need to ride it this way and then ride it that way, then it actually takes very little effort, very little energy. However, if you're not able to do that, if you're not skilled enough to hold that center, to hold that place of high vibration, then you're just going to end up being tumbled in the wave as it breaks on the shore. It's called the washing machine effect. And I don't know if it's ever happened to you, that when you're in it, you don't know which is up and which is down anymore. You're just being thrown around, and you just have to trust that you will land on the shore. So we're learning to ride that wave. And one way that you can do it is through the way of the Fae. But first, we need to clarify a few technical terms. First of all, our electromagnetic frequency field. So we're all electric beings, energetic beings, and we emit radiation. It's called our electromagnetic frequency. And it can be measured. It can be very low or it can be very high. And whatever we are emitting, the universe will match back to us. Remember, the universe is matching us. It's matching the state that we can hold, and it will match it. So if we're in a low vibration, that is what the universe will match. And what they've discovered is that actually authenticity has 4 times the frequency of love. This completely shocked me when I saw this. I always thought love would be like the highest frequency, but it's not. It's authenticity. So this is the emotional frequency scale, which you may have seen before. And right at the bottom, almost no hertz at all. Electromagnetic frequency is measured in hertz, which is cycles of energy. And shame is the lowest frequency. If you suffer with shame, you know how devastating it can be. I suffer with, I used to. I've managed to find my way to click out of it now. And it always has to be a conscious choice, because our default is always to go into negative stuff. Our default is to go to flight, fear responses. And we have to make a choice to step up. Now, about 30% of the population have shame. It's not genetic, it's not programmed, it's not nurture or nature, it just happens to be for some reason. But the majority of people in prison suffer with shame. And it is a very, very dark place. So then we just got general forms of negativity. And then we come to boredom, which is pretty sort of like in the middle. And, it's that one with like, oh, I'm bored. Oh, I could go and watch some news, for example, and bring my vibration down lower. Or I could go and do something that I love to do and bring my vibration up. And then we have love, about 500 hertz. And then authenticity sits higher than that. Now, they say that enlightenment is 1,000 hertz. So I'm not quite sure how authenticity is 4,000 times higher than love. But we know that authenticity sits higher than love. It's a very high frequency. And the way that our frequencies are controlled is by our hormones. So if you're in, or when we're in negative states, we tend to be creating stress hormones. And the worst of these is cortisol. It is very destructive. It's absolutely great if you find yourself as a refugee in a freezing cold ditch and you have to stay alive. Cortisol will keep you alive, but it doesn't care what's happening to your joints. That can all go to pot because cortisol will just keep us alive. It won't actually look after us. It won't heal us. It's more destructive than healing. And an awful lot of people live under the influence of cortisol because it's triggered by fear and stress. However, if we can get above the boredom limit, then we start kicking out happy hormones, endorphins, serotonin, things like that, things that make us feel good, oxytocin. And these are very healing hormones. They actually make us feel better, and they're anti-inflammatory, for example. So the higher we can raise our vibration, then the more automatically we will heal ourselves. So we all have stress. We all had trauma as a child, and they tend to be 4 different types of responses to trauma. So mine was freeze. I would do like this. Oh my God, I'm wrong. In the shame, you're just absolutely rigid with fear. It's horrible. And some people fight. I'm going to get you. I hate the way you're triggering me. Some people it's fawn. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Can I make it better for you? And some people it's like, I'm out of here. Or as a child, I'm just going to hide. And we all have it. So in your journal, I'd like you just to write down those 4 key words in the order that you tend to experience them. Are you a freeze person predominantly, a fawn person, a fight person, or a flight person? And then rank the others behind that, just quickly. And again, you can pause the video while I move on. But the thing about children is that unless they are really close to dying because they're starving or whatever, or they have they're not being cared for, they're not being held, they've been completely abandoned, children will always find something to be happy about. They will always be able to play. And for me, that sort of falls into like 4 categories. And I call these the W categories because they all represent one of my values. That's one thing we will look at on the Way of the Fae course is what are your core values? Because in order to make really good decisions, you need to know what your values are. You need to know like what's valuable to you, and therefore which of these is the best decision that is going to align with your values. But let's go back. So the wild child is like, oh, no problem, being the center of attention, and look at me, I'm going to play the guitar and things like that. And then you've got the weird child who likes to hide with a book. That was me with my Magic Faraway Tree book, and create pictures and stories. And then you have the wise child, I was like this too, who wants to be outdoors, communicating with nature and with their pets. I was obsessed with wildflowers. And these children often are very wise because they've learned to communicate in a way that most adults can no longer do. And then there's a child who's just full of wonder and curiosity. Curiosity is a key skill that as adults we have not developed. We've left it behind. And yet it's what makes life fascinating and interesting. So you've got the child who's like, I'm off to explore the moon, or I'm off to explore, the depths of the oceans or whatever. They're always curious about the unknown. They're the explorers. So again, I'd like you to write down a list of which of these children do you think you were predominantly as a child, and then write them down in the order that you feel you fitted into these qualities. And how much are you doing them now? How much have you carried over with you from your childhood? How much do you play? It's a key factor in raising our vibration, is play and curiosity. So obviously, I'm fairy godmother, and the story we will think about is Cinderella. I got AI to create this image, and I love that. The miracle of the ashes. Because, of course, Cinderella rose out of the ashes in the fireplace, to become her authentic princess self. And that's what the Way of the Fae course is all about. It's about rising from those challenges, those headsets, those mindsets that keep us very trapped and very fearful and in a very low vibration, so that we can actually step out of them and be our more authentic self at a much higher vibration, so that the universe is then matching that for us. Law of resonance. So I got AI to create this lovely image of how, that we can come to this course feeling a bit like, oh, I don't know, and I'm not really sure, and I'm struggling with this, and I'm forever triggered by this, and I spend a lot of my time feeling quite negative or worried, and I don't know how to step out of it. And the Way of the Fae is basically a lot of little tips, tricks, tunes, and truths to help you to step out of that low vibration and into a higher vibration, your more authentic self, your worthy self. And here I am. I will be your host, the fairy godmother, with my collection of tips, tricks, tunes, and truths, which I've been collecting for probably nearly 30 years. Some of the things I'll be sharing with you, I've been working with for nearly 30 years, and others I've only literally learned 5 minutes ago. It's like, and there are so many of them, but when you get them, you just pick the ones that resonate with you most. Start with those, and then you can bring in more. But why is it really important for us to raise our vibration, to raise our electromagnetic frequency? Well, we're all familiar with these images. What I call the uniformity. It's not just the staring at the phones. It's not just always having a coffee. It's the fact that everybody now looks the same. And I think this is very much to do with Pluto and Aquarius, because Pluto and Aquarius is about communities of like-minded people, but at very low vibration, and the planets will all operate on that spectrum as well, from low vibration to high vibration. And at very low vibration, Pluto in Aquarius is about uniformity. It's about all looking the same. And in the UK, we are so familiar with uniforms. 3-year-olds are putting uniforms now, and most jobs have uniforms. So it's just, you go into the shops now, Christmas 2025 and last year, and you'd be lucky to find anything to wear that's not black, white, beige, bit of copper, tiny bit of green, bit of pink, bit of red. That's it. No yellow or orange or turquoise or anything like that. It's like the choices are decreasing for us. Even in charity shops, all mostly black and white now. And then, of course, we have the medical system, and I totally get it that as women, it's like childbirth, we're so geared to be frightened that, of all the things that could go wrong. And so women put themselves into these very sterile situations with overworked staff. I have a friend who is a senior midwife, and she says you have 12-hour shifts with no breaks. You're not going to, the women are not going to get their best care in a situation like that. They're going to be even more frightened because they feel more isolated and in strange circumstances, particularly because it's so hard and cold. And the office scene, I don't suppose many of you work in an office like that. However, what I did discover the other day was that most of our bright young people are going to work in places like this because they're going to work in finance, which they're the best paid jobs. And so, of course, they're going to be in these ultra modern high rise offices with very little fresh air, artificial lighting, staring at screens all day, very little comfort, softness. And then finally, I think we could probably all relate to the last one, of where it's just like, I can't deal with all the paperwork. I can't deal with the technology. You try and go online to complete a basic questionnaire, and it's like, they just want so much. And you're just like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to get in there. And then you phone, and what do you get? An automated message. You just feel like you go round and round in circles. So I want you to look at those 4 slides, and for you, which of those is really sort of a bit in your face at the moment? And it's like you feel like, I don't know how we're going to deal with this, or I don't know how I'm going to deal with this. I don't know how to step out of this low vibration. I want you to just write down 1 or 2 of these scenes that are impacting you, if they do. Now, why is this really important now? So the top 2 slides are about what is happening with medicine. Now, Big Pharma was all very medicine based. It was all based in oil. Most medicines are replicas of natural substances, and they've been made from oil. And of course, the oil industry is getting a bit tight, and the tech industry is starting to explode. So what's happening is that Big Pharma are moving from oil into tech. I don't know about you, but I had a bit of metal put in my jaw when I broke my jaw. I've got a bit of metal in my teeth. Some of us have got bits of metal in our knees and hips. And of course, there are now more and more people who have got technology embedded in their brains so they can hear or they can see when they've never been able to. The problem comes is, where is the limit? How much of our humanity are we willing to either suppress with medications, because medications will alter your own state of being, they will influence your hormones, or do we want to actually take on board technology within our body? And Greg Braden talks a lot about this, and it's called transhumanism, and he's really worried about it. And then the bottom 2 images are much more about the sort of lives that a lot of people are living, the sort of influences that they're under. And the one on the left, I mean, not only is it, like there's just no color, it's just all neutral, which I get. If you're really, really stressed, you don't want anything at home that is going to make you feel even more cluttered or overwhelmed with detail. You just want nothing. You just want it white and nothing. But then, of course, they're all on their own screens. But the main thing I chose this image for was because it's put, everybody is watching negative stuff that is low vibration. I gave up the media. I gave up looking at any media at the beginning of 2020. And I stopped watching any films that were 18, even 15, sometimes even 12, anything that had gratuitous violence or sex in it. And now I only look at or read or listen to high vibration stuff. Because what happens is that when, like the other day, I was looking at a newspaper, I was looking at my friend's Guardian, there was an article in there that potentially could have been really interesting, but it was so negative. I couldn't read it. I just couldn't deal with it. I thought, I don't want to take this on board. I don't want this permeating my system. So I would highly recommend that you just do not engage. You'll still know what's going on. I still know what's going on because it filters through in different ways. Somebody might say something, or I might just catch a snippet of something somewhere, or I see a newspaper headline in a supermarket or something. And I go, oh, okay, that's what's going on. I can imagine what that's like. That is a very top tip, to give up media. I don't mean social media. I mean news, violence, gratuitous sex, that sort of thing. Anything that makes you go, oh, I'm not sure about that. That is impacting your vibration. And then the final image, you know, we all know that children are spending an awful lot of time now on screens. Primary schools are not quite so bad. I believe that just about every primary school now, the children get at least an hour a week of what's called forest school. But otherwise, you know, their world is becoming increasingly square, whether that's because they're in square rooms or they're looking at square screens. And even art, even music, they're having to copy styles rather than finding their own innate creativity. There was an experiment done in the late 60s, you've probably heard of it. Professor George Hand was asked by NASA to create a test to find out how creative NASA's employees were. So he did this test and he gave it to 5-year-olds first, and 98% were creative geniuses. By the time it got to adulthood, only 2%. It literally just dropped off as people went through school. Because school does not encourage us to be creative thinkers. It encourages us to follow and to do what we're told, and to memorize and to learn certain pieces of information. So it's our responsibility now to re-engage with that inner child that's still there, that 5-year-old that was 98% creative genius, and bring that back up to the surface. And the best way to do that is to raise your vibration. They come hand in hand. They come hand in hand. So what would we all like? On our own, we need to spend time on our own. We need to have the space to listen, to connect with our own source, whatever we call that, be that nature or angels or God or Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. We need quiet space in order to make that connection. Meditation's great, but you can't beat getting out into nature. You really can't. Nature holds a vibration that is unique. It's totally high. Plants live in a completely different frequency to us. But when we are out in nature and we can just be quiet, just absorb it, then it becomes part of us. So, going for a walk with a friend is really nice, but you tend to just chat all the time. You're not really grounding yourself and become merging with what's around you, because that requires silence and stillness and listening for those subtle messages. And then, of course, family time. Okay, I know that a lot of us have very difficult families, but ideally, our families should be our greatest loves. We know each other better than anybody else. We have unconditional love for each other. We're a bit like, oh God, here they go again. His grandpa off on one of his rants. I know, Grandpa, it's great, isn't it? Because we love them. And so we make allowances for people. And to have that, to feel that companionship and play games together and do lovely things together, eat together, pray together, dance together, sing together, is very, very special and very important to raising our vibration. And equally, being in community, we need to be surrounded by people that we get on with, that we know might be there for us if we fall ill, or we're there for them if they fall ill. And we can come together and celebrate and just have fun together, and all bring food together and make music together and dance together. So important. Human beings are social animals, and I know that we've all really missed it in the last few years, but now is time to get that back, and more so. And then finally, we all want a happy planet, a healthy planet. And for me, if there's one key indicator of how healthy the planet is, and that's the number of insects that we see, which is why I've surrounded the planet in butterflies. And I think there are definitely more insects this summer, 2025, than what there have been over the last few years. Now, I'm not going to go through all of this, but for a lot of you, you may not know me very well. The top row is all the things I absolutely adored to do as a child. Magic Faraway Tree. That was my book. I don't know how many times I read that. I lived in the Magic Faraway Tree. Dancing. I loved to dance, and I still love to dance. It's the best form of exercise. And if you think about it, before we humans ever had language, we were dancing and drumming. Before we had any other instruments, we were just doing percussion on bits of wood. And dancing and drumming are really important for me, really important expressions of who I am. And if you say, I can't dance, well, maybe you think you can't, but human beings are dancers. That's our natural form of expression. So, in the tips, tricks, and tunes and truths, there will be some dance music just to get you moving, get you going. Wildflowers. I was obsessed with wildflowers as a small child. I think it's one of those things that I brought through with me, because I seem to know all the names without really having to look them up. And if I see something new now, I can go, I'm pretty certain that's da-da-da-da. And then I'll go and look it up in the book, and I go, oh, wow, tis. I love wildflowers. And when I was a child, there were an awful lot more of them around. And they're just amazing medicine, and they make us feel so good. The colors and the smells and just the freedom of them, just so beautiful. And then the last slide on the top is of me holding my banner up. Magical Journeys Design is my clothing I can't remember a time when I didn't like making clothes. As a kid, it was dolls' clothes, but I love creating clothes and outfits, mainly from upcycled fabrics. This cardigan I'm wearing now, which I forgot to take off, has been made out of 2 old cashmere cardigans. And then the next 2 rows show you the journey that I'd taken from when I was 18, when I went into science. Didn't really want to. I wanted to do art, but I was clever. You know how it is. Got pushed into doing science. And I dropped out at 25 and went backpacking around the world. And ended up in Australia, where I became a greenie, which is a sort of fairy, really, and spent 3 months living in the bush in Tasmania, protecting the last wild river. And I got into tarot and astrology. And then I came back to the UK and I had 2 children and we lived by the sea. And I spent I didn't really work. I worked a bit, but I wanted to be a stay-at-home mum. But one of the things I did do is I made my own flower essences. I had a huge range. It got published in a book. And I was a therapist. I used to have people come. I'd do kinesiology and flower essences. And then I met the father of my 3rd child and had another child very late, and we got married. And I started doing private maths tutoring, which was actually very lucrative for a while. And I really enjoyed doing that. I love working with children's brains. Why are you stuck on that type of thing? Getting them to reprogram their brains so they actually liked maths. And best thing of all, I went to art college for 4 years. It was the best thing, learning to play. And I started specializing in using plastics and waste materials. And then I went sailing. I started sailing at 60. And I went on this sailing expedition around the UK and we were sampling for microplastics. And then I ended up living on a canal boat. And now I live in a van. And then, because they raised the retirement age just at the point when I was about to retire, so I worked for 5-6 years as a live-in carer for the elderly. I only did about a week a month. I would cover other carers' holidays, but I must have worked with over about 100 elderly people. And I came to understand that connection between our vibration and our happiness, our health, our longevity. If you want to live a really happy, healthy old age, you have to learn how to raise your vibration as high as you can. And then in the last few years, I've been training how to be a speaker. I've won awards. I've started doing the Way of the Fae quite a few years ago and ran 2 retreats, one of which was for MTV on the Teen Mum Show. And then I really deep dive into my astrology and I created the astrology course, Star Wisdom, which several of you have experienced. And I started doing the stargazing presentations every 6 weeks. They're all in my YouTube channel. And then I love traveling. I've always been a great traveler, usually walking and wild camping. But at the beginning of 2025, I went by public bus all the way up the west coast of the US. And it's just about to be released as a book called Radical Trust. And here I am back launching the Way of the Fae. So I'm going to tell you now a little bit about the course, The Way of the Fae to Your Authentic Self. And it takes 7 weeks. So it's got 7 modules, and Cinders just happens to have 7 letters. So I thought, okay, we're going to follow the story of Cinderella through this process of aligning with your authentic self. So we start with the letter C, which is for choice. Are you going to choose the positive or are you going to choose the negative? On that emotional frequency scale, are you going to go above the boredom or are you going to go below the boredom? It's your choice. So what was Cinderella's choice? Well, if we listen to the story, we find out that actually she was a really sweet girl, that she'd been brought up to be very kind and very generous. And she really did do her best to support the household, to be kind to the animals, to be kind to her sisters, stepsisters, even though they weren't very nice to her. She was genuinely a kind person. And so it was quite likely that whatever choices she would be making would be to go towards the more of the positive choices. But is that what we choose? Is that what we choose in our everyday life? When somebody starts whinging and complaining about something, do we go into that negative vibration with them? Or do we change the subject? Imagine. So you can just imagine that Cinder's sisters, they've gone off to the ball, and she's sitting there and she's like, oh, I wonder what it's like there. I wonder what I would have worn if I'd gone. And like dancing with the prince. I wonder what that would be like. And she's creating this new reality in her mind, in her pictures, in her imagining. And she's very focused on it. And this ability that we have to imagine an outcome, to imagine what we want, is our genius. That is our creative genius. That's what children are doing all the time. It's just that when we were sat at school, we were told, stop daydreaming and focus and concentrate on your work. But really, we're the only animals who can imagine. And it's such an amazing gift that we have. It brings us so much joy and fun and satisfaction. It's a real shame that the majority of adults don't do this anymore. So I'm encouraging you to do a lot more imagining. And then N is for ninja, because we have to develop our self-mastery. We have to become in control of who we are, and particularly our thoughts and our feelings. So Cinderella, she's in this imaginal realm, and she's mastering her own thoughts and her own feelings to stay in this realm. It's like she has created a parallel universe for herself, and she is in it. And then the magic happens, and her fairy godmother turns up. And then it's about duplication, because, of course, we don't know exactly how to be this new person that we are imagining, that we really, really want to step into. So we find someone else who is like, oh, I want to be like them. When I first saw Reign, Reign, the Netflix series, and I saw the character who played Mary, Queen of Scots, I was like, I want to be like her. I just want to be like her. And I just started moving like her. I started smiling like her, started having that ease in my body like her. Embodiment is such a crucial thing. And in this program, she and also our own queen, if you ever saw the series, the Queen, they get anointed with this special oil, and they know that they are divine beings, and they can therefore step into their sovereign self. And this is what we have to do, because we don't really know what that's like if we're feeling quite negative about ourselves. But if we can embody someone else who represents that for us, then we can learn to feel, what does that actually feel like? And can I carry that energy? And gradually it becomes your own. And E, there's a bit of a leeway here, but about saying yes. When you get offered something, like when you saw the advert for this masterclass, did you go, oh, yes, yes, I really want to do that? Because what's happening is that we are aligning our energy with the energy of something that is coming towards us. So remember our electromagnetic frequency that we're emitting, the higher we can raise it, then the higher the vibration of what is coming to us. And we feel it in our heart. You can't think about this stuff. If you think about it, you'll always go into low vibration fear and you'll talk yourself out of it. You have to feel it in your heart. You have to go, oh, yes, I want to do this, or I want that. And even though you have no idea how you're going to do it or what it might involve, you just go, I just have to. I always say to myself, I can't bear to find myself on my deathbed thinking, I wished I'd said yes to that. I don't want to live with any regrets that I didn't say yes, that I wasn't brave, and I didn't take any risks, and I wasn't courageous and step up and just go, yes, irrespective of how much it costs, well, within reason. But if it, it's like, if I really want to do it, I will find it. I will find the way to do it. Because when we feel that yes, then it's for us, definitely. And so here's Cinderella, and she's going, yes, I'm going to the ball. Oh, hang on a minute, how am I getting there? And it's exactly the same with us. Because we go, oh, yes, I really want to do that. Oh, how am I going to get the money? Or how am I going to meet the right person? So we ask the universe, how, what, which, when, what do I have to do? And the universe will always provide the answer, usually pretty quick. If not instantly in your brain, within a day or two, somebody will turn up or something will show up and you go, oh, that's the answer to my question. For me, that's very much the Christian saying, ask and you will receive. So if we ask, I really want to do this. I really feel like I want to do this Way of the Fae course, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. So you just say yes. And then you say, okay, I've got this issue and that issue. How am I going to resolve these issues? The universe will show it to you. The universe will tell you. So there she says, how am I going to get my coach and horses to go there? And the fairy godmother magics the pumpkin and the mice into a coach and horses. And that's what it's like. It's like you say, but how? And then you get this information. Oh, okay, I hadn't thought about it like that. That's how this course came about. Because I said to AI, I need to run another course. I need to develop my business. And it said, well, what about running a 6-week course? And I thought, yes. And then it was like, well, what am I going to run it in? And it was, whoa, like that. The Way of the Fae. Okay, cool. I'm off. I'm doing it. To take that step can feel very radical. You're stepping out of your comfort zone. It requires courage. It requires courage because you're pushing a frontier. You're pushing the boundary of what you feel is safe or normal. You're stepping out. What people are going to think of me? And we all know that when we raise our vibration, some people do get left behind. They just no longer resonate with us. But you wouldn't believe how many more people will come into your field who now do resonate with you. Exciting, vibrant people. The more exciting and the more vibrancy you can hold in yourself with your vibration, then that is what you will attract to you. And then finally, smile. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this right at the end of this presentation. But, when you feel like your true, authentic self, you can't help it. You just smile because you just feel good. all the time. And the other thing is that you start to feel much more connected with everything. I call this oneness or unity. Some people might call it Christ consciousness. But we start to realize how we are all interconnected. And here she is. Her dream came true. Her vision came true. And she found herself dancing with the prince. So let's start with the first week. What would be covering in the first week? This is all about choice. Do we choose positive vibration or do we choose negative vibration? Do we choose to build up our happy hormones, or are we going to slide into our stress hormones? So I learned about positivity from an instruction I had in March 2020. We all know what happened in March 2020. I was house sitting for a friend. It wasn't quite as nice a house as this, but it was a nice house. And my diary was just absolutely packed of things I was doing in the summer. I love to have a busy summer doing all sorts of adventures and things. And one of the things I was going sailing in the Arctic, looking at plastics. I was so excited. And as I sat at my friend's house, I sort of looked ahead and I realized that none of this was going to happen, that we were going to actually be locked up for a long time. And I was sort of looking down this tunnel of the summer and like, whoa, what am I going to do all summer? So I said to the universe, what should I do? And it said, go into retreat mode. Now, I do retreats every year. I have done for a long time. So I sort of understood that instruction to go in retreat mode. And when we go into retreat, we asked, are there any instructions? I had one instruction. Do not engage in negativity. Wow. I mean, it was pretty negative at that time, wasn't it? Everybody was terrified and the media was full of it. And it's just the phone calls from people. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to engage in this. I'm just not going to engage in it. And I turned off all the media. If people started talking to me about what was going on, I'd deal with a little bit of it. And then I'd say, can we change the subject? Or I'd go to the toilet or something. And I would just say, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about this. Let's talk about something else. And I got to the point where I was pretty good at not engaging in what was going on. But then I started to realize actually I was a very negative person. There was so much negativity going on in my mind about so many different things. I was like, whoa, that was negative thought. Right, better stop that one, turn that one around. And bit by bit by bit, I've been peeling away the layers of negativity. Still on that journey. I suspect I'll be on it for the rest of my life. I think we all are, because we naturally go into negativity because our default is to go into our fears in order to look after ourselves. So then we always have to be very vigilant and catch it and go, no, I'm not going to be negative about this. I'm going to be positive about this. I'm going to turn this around. And again, there's that sense of like, yes, I just feel so much better now for not being in that negative sludge all the time, being in a place of much more positivity. So I highly recommend that you are very vigilant on what's going on in your mind and not allow the negativity and not allow it in either. Just don't have it. Just don't have it. And for this first session, you're going to get a lot more tips and tricks than this. But here's a sample that you would get for this particular module. And I'm not going to read them all through. You can pause the screen and have a look at them yourself. But the tune, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. I know it feels like such an inane thing, but when we repeat a repetitive tune, when we repeating myself, when we have a repetitive tune going in our heads like that and we sing it consciously, it stops us from thinking. And we can vary it. We can do all sorts of things. If you're happy and you know it, blow a kiss like that. And you can change the tone that you sing it in. You can change the rhythm. You can change you can do, what's it called? Harmonies to it. Just play with it. And the truth is that energy flows where our attention goes. If we're focused on the negative, then that's where our energy goes. If we're focused on the positive, then that's where our energy will go. And what we find is that the more you are really vigilant about not allowing that negativity, you'll find that you move ever more into just a state of joy. Because you're kicking in much more of your happy hormones. In fact, you're kicking in your happy hormones all the time that you're being positive. You can't have cortisol and be positive. You just can't. And the added benefit of this, which I'll go into much more deeply in the course, is that you start to affect your DNA. It's called epigenetics. And because we live in a quantum reality and there is no thing as time, it's not a linear thing that, I'm here, there's my history, my relatives, that I've inherited from, and here's the future that's going forward. And maybe, I've already had my children, but it doesn't work like that. When we change our DNA, you've probably heard of the butterfly effect. We change the DNA all the way up and all the way down. So we're not only raising our own vibration, we're actually raising the vibration of the whole line that we belong to. And maybe, I know my ancestors have all gone now. However, I hold them in my frequency at a much higher vibration. I feel much happier about them now. And I can see the difference in my children. I can definitely see that they are getting happier too, even though I don't even talk to them about it. And the other thing is that in quantum physics, there's this thing called the many worlds interpretation. Because every time we make a decision to be positive instead of negative, then we are forging a new path, a new timeline, some people call it, or a new reality. And because the universe will match us, then that reality becomes ever more higher vibration. And we can see the negative realities going on around us, particularly since this last Samhain and the veil became very thin. You can definitely see them and feel them now. I can see them, but they're not my reality. It's almost like I'm walking in a parallel universe to what's actually going on. So it's very exciting. It's very healing. And basically, when we do that, we are creating what is often called New Earth or 5D experience, which I'm sure some of you have heard of. So the actual course, what does it involve? Well, it's for 7 weeks, and there are 8 group question and answers on Zoom. So there's one at the beginning of the 7 weeks, and then there's the final one at the end of the 7 weeks. So you end up with 8 calls with the 7 weeks in the middle, and you get 7 chunks of tips, tricks, tunes, and truths. And at the moment, it's going to be on Wednesdays from 8 until 9 p.m., starting on the 7th of January and finishing on the last one on the 25th of February. If this is not fixed in stone this time, the date, and obviously the dates, but the weeks are. If everybody comes on the course and everybody says, can't do Wednesday, we'll find something that works for all of us. At the moment, this is what I'm proposing. And as I said, and then we'll have a Facebook group where we can upload how we're getting on, and I will upload all the videos and all the tips and all the tricks and all the tunes and all the truths, and it'll be like a smorgasbord, and you can just go, oh, I fancy that one today, or I fancy this one today. Oh gosh, that really feels in alignment with where I'm at the moment. I'm going to practice that this week. And bit by bit, you just start adding more, and they're all so fast. Nearly all of them are just like, I'm not going to think like that anymore. I'm going to think like this. It's not like you have to go and do yoga for 2 hours or something every day. It's not like that. It's just quick, fast, little tunes to sing, little truths to think about. So now I'm going to look at the last of the sessions, which is about smile. And there's another story to go with this one. So I have a spiritual teacher. I believe that we all need a coach. We all need a teacher, because otherwise you're quite likely to go off down some very weird rabbit hole. It's like you need somebody who's just that one step ahead of you to go, oh yeah, that feels like a wise choice, or I think you're going a bit off track here. And so with my spiritual teacher, the last few years, we've been doing a lot about self-care. And every month I look at what practices would be good for me to introduce that month for my own self-care. And 1 January, I was given this very simple technique about smiling all the time. From when I woke up in the morning to when I went to sleep at night, even if I was on my own, I had to smile all the time for a whole month. I would say that has been the positivity and the smiling, and 1 or 2 others I will share in the course, have been the most profound implementers of change in my life. Because when we smile, even if we don't feel like it, our brain goes, oh, she's happy. Let's kick in some positive hormones, some happy hormones. And immediately you feel better. You actually feel like smiling. It's not easy because you have to keep remembering smile, 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 smile. The other amazing benefit of it is a beauty tip. So look at my face when I'm not smiling. And now when I'm smiling. You see, when we smile, we get these lovely rounded cheeks. We tend to get rid of a lot of the lines that we have around here, and our eyes light up, and we just look beautiful. People, when they smile, look beautiful. And you'll find that when you smile at other people, not everybody will smile back. A lot of people won't see it, but sometimes you'll click eyes with someone and they'll go like that. And I've had people come up to me and say, you don't know, you changed my day doing that. You just made me feel so much better, the fact that you smiled at me. I was on a sailing boat with people I know I'd never met before. I went to Portugal. It was 2 weeks on a boat with a group of people I did not know. And I felt quite anxious and quite nervous, and the food was so bad. I was struggling to be kind about the food. And this one young man on the boat really didn't like me very much. Well, I don't know, he was probably a bit afraid of me. And he was writing a blog, and he was making comments about everybody on the boat in the blog. So he read out the comments to me and he said, well, we've got this, she's very strange, Deborah, but she smiles all the time. I thought, wow, he's not really even spoken to me, doesn't particularly like me. I don't feel that. But he's noticed that I smile all the time. It's a very unusual characteristic to see in somebody, but it can change your life. It changed my life. It changed my life. My body is so much healthier because I just have happy hormones going around all the time. I very, very rarely have cortisol going around. And, and I do all these other things, I'm grounding on the earth and I'm eating really healthy food and I meditate and I get as much sunlight as I can. But up until that point, I wasn't smiling like these children smile. These children who have nothing, but they're always smiling. They're always joyful and happy. And we who have so much compared to them, and yet we tend to whinge and moan. So you can change that now in an instant, just like that. And so here's the tips, tricks, and June and juice for this. I don't actually know this song, the Smile song. The one that you'll get in the course will be slightly different. But, we all know that saying that if you smile, the world will smile with you. That's the same as if you raise your vibration, the world will come to match it, to meet you there. So again, you can pause here if you want to write those down. I'm going to move on. And so basically what we're doing is, most of us are already quite loving. I'm sure that most of you are all very ready, very loving people. But maybe you don't feel quite like you are being your true self, your divine self. We are all divine beings. They say we're made in the image of God. And this is what is happening at the moment, that the whole consciousness of the planet, human consciousness, everything is rising. And this is our opportunity to really step into our authenticity, to rise even above love and into our authenticity. And this is where we start to move into our bliss hormones. Now, this is all a little bit my particular interpretation, but you may know that our pineal glands release DMT, which is a bliss hormone. Now, science will tell you that it's only released at birth and death, but I don't believe that. Yes, a lot of us have got calcified pineal glands, and therefore it's very difficult to create that DMT. But in the course, I will tell you straight away how you're going to decalcify your pineal gland so that you begin to release your own DMT and to actually experience bliss. And you don't have to do anything to be in a state of bliss, to be in a divine state. And when we can access that state, then we're no longer focused on ourselves. Then our awareness is out to the entire universe. Then we know that actually we have the power to effect change in the entire universe, sometimes called Christ consciousness, because Christ's vibration was so high that he could counteract the negativity of millions of people. And when we come to find that place of authenticity in ourselves, that inner state of divinity, bliss, peace, gratitude, then we change the vibration of everything around us. We can change the vibration of a room full of people when we walk into the room. And we can change the vibration of a whole area around us. And if we're really good, we can actually change the vibration of the whole planet. Imagine if there was lots of us being able to hold that stability of peace and bliss within ourselves. The whole group of us able to do it. It only takes 3.5% to turn the whole course of the planet into a new direction. And so that is part of my aim in bringing this course, is to gather together this group of people who are working from this very high vibration and always pursuing the next. How high can I get? How much closer can I get to being my divine self, to being God? We are made in the image of God. And we all know that our brains, we've only been using a tiny little bit of them for a long time, and that we have the potential for so much more. And I really feel that this air and fire energy we're moving into, which is all about flow and being in a state of being and not force, not about work. It's not about pushing. It's literally about changing our state of being. And that's what this 7-week course is all about. So a quick reminder, 8 Zoom sessions, which at the moment will be on Wednesdays from 8 till 9, starting on the 7th of January and finishing on the 25th of February. And every week you're going to get a whole bundle of tips, tricks, tunes, and truths, which I forgot to write on here. Sorry about that. And, you'll have these forever. And you can just keep adopting a new one. Oh, I'm going to take another one on now. I'm going to integrate another one. And soon you'll be making up your own too. So thank you so much for watching this presentation. And I really look forward to seeing you on the course. If your heart is going, yes, I really need to be on that. I really need to raise my vibration and to do that with a group of other like-minded folk of the Fae. Love you all.